Babes, happy Monday. We hope you have an amazing week. And babes, we just love you for being here.
We really do, because nobody asked for this Monday to arrive.
Literally nobody. I mean, the weekend was basically a hallucination. It went by so fast.
It evaporated.
But thankfully, the Atlanta Housewives are bringing, like, more complex psychological warfare to our screens than most people see in an entire month. And honestly, it's the only thing getting me through the week.
It is the absolute anchor keeping us tethered to reality right now. That and the fact that the Casamigos margaritas are, officially flowing in the studio tonight.
Yes. I have the salt on the rim, I have my lime squeezed, and I'm so ready to spiral.
Same. But bestie, before we even touch the absolute chaos in Atlanta, we really need to address this glaring issue in our professional lives.
Oh my gosh, are we talking about the DMs?
Yes, the direct messages and the tags from the Snark squad, because George Clooney is still actively, intentionally ignoring us.
The silence on Lake Como is actually deafening. It hurts my feelings.
Do you have any idea how many times we have poured this specific tequila on this show?
I tried to calculate it this morning. I was like, avoiding my patient charts. Just sitting there thinking about our unofficial brand ambassadorship. We are self-funding a marketing campaign for a billion-dollar company.
Right, and George is just out there perfectly tanned in his little linen outfits riding a vintage wooden speedboat.
Just pretending we don't exist.
Well, let's look at the raw demographic data, okay? His marketing team is probably pulling our metrics, and we have to face a harsh truth here.
Which is?
We are not his target aesthetic. Lake Como is about, quiet luxury, wealth whispering.
And we are definitely not whispering.
Exactly. We are sitting in front of professional microphones, screaming about women, arguing over Kool-Aid hot dogs, and rating toxic behavior on a mess meter.
Okay, well, catching strays from my own best friend.
I'm just being analytical. We are a PR liability to the Clooney vibe. We scream like tequila shots in a Midtown parking lot.
That is a devastating read, but honestly, it's completely accurate. Fine. If George wants to gatekeep the agave, I am putting our new dream sponsorship out into the universe.
Who is it?
We need brands that understand the mess, right? I'm thinking Vanderpump Rosé, obviously. Or, since we literally drill into teeth for a living, what about a luxury dental floss?
Oh, wait, I see the vision.
Right, like a charcoal-infused floss in a heavy glass vial that costs, $42.
Brand synergy, babes. Like a water flosser that violently blasts away plaque, exactly like we blast away the flimsy excuses these housewives try to feed us every Sunday.
Yes, that is the energy we need. But until that check clears, we will keep self-funding margaritas, because Monday is it's offensive to the human spirit without it.
It truly takes the edge off. So speaking of our day jobs, we have to do our highs and lows of the work week, dentist edition.
The Snark squad demands it. They love knowing what happens when we take off the headphones and put on the scrubs.
The double lives we lead. So what was a week like for you? Give me your absolute peak and your most devastating valley.
Okay, my high was actually genuinely beautiful. I had this older gentleman come in, like a grandfather, and he had been missing several teeth for years.
Severe bone loss.
Yeah, and he was so incredibly self-conscious. He told me he actively avoids smiling in photos with his newborn granddaughter because he hates his mouth so much.
That is heartbreaking.
Right. So this week was the final delivery of his permanent implant-supported dentures. We locked them in, we checked the bite, and I handed him the mirror. Babes, he just stared at himself and started weeping. Full on crying. He looked at me and said, like I look like me again.
Oh my God.
I instantly started crying. My assistant was crying. We were just a puddle of tears in Operatory 3. It's those moments where you're like, okay, this is why I survived the absolute torture of dental school.
And that is so pure. You are the emotional anchor, providing that real human connection in healthcare.
Thank you. But the universe requires balance, so my low was an absolute biohazard.
Oh, no. What did you do?
I had a moment of sheer, unadulterated weakness. I saw the staff break room fridge was getting chaotic, and I accidentally volunteered to clean it out.
Wait, what? Bestie, you know the protocol. The fridge is a no man's land.
I know. I had an iced coffee. I was feeling generous, I thought, like 10 minutes tops. I was profoundly wrong. I found a coworker's elite snacks hidden behind an old jar of artisan pickles.
Define elite snacks.
It was a very expensive platter of imported prosciutto and artisanal cheeses that had been abandoned for at least a month.
The bacterial colonization must have been staggering.
It was a thriving ecosystem. The cheese was growing a literal fur coat. It wasn't dairy anymore. It was a new species.
I am dry heaving just thinking about the spores.
The smell was aggressive. I had to double glove and put on an N95 surgical mask just to handle this charcuterie board like radioactive waste. I am officially retired from domestic duties at that office.
You violated a core workplace survival rule. Leave the fridge to the admins.
Lesson learned. What about your week? Give me the whiplash.
My peak was pure, unfiltered vindication. I had a new patient transfer in from one of those super flashy cosmetic practices downtown.
The ones with the marble floors and the espresso machines.
Exactly. And the previous dentist had completely misdiagnosed a structural issue with the patient's TMJ. They wanted to do this highly aggressive treatment plan, shaving down perfectly healthy enamel.
Are you serious? Shaving down healthy enamel?
Yes. So I sat the patient down, pulled up the panoramic x-ray, and just traced the actual bone structure for them.
Right.
The math on the previous diagnosis wasn't mathing. It was just a muscular impingement.
So it just needed a night guard.
A custom night guard and physical therapy. Simple. Fixing a botched diagnosis from a quote-unquote superior clinic, the dopamine rush was unparalleled.
This is why you are terrifying in the best way. You love a puzzle, but you love proving someone else is incompetent even more.
It's a competitive field, but the universe humbled me immediately for my low.
What happened?
Somebody, and I'm currently running a forensic investigation to find out exactly who, started a synchronized TikTok dance challenge among the clinical staff.
No. In the middle of the workday.
On a fully booked Tuesday, I have a crown prep in chair 2, a root canal follow-up in chair 4, and the entire workflow halts.
Oh my God, the waiting room gets so hostile when you run late.
Exactly. I walk down to the sterilization room, and there are 3 hygienists and a dental assistant trying to nail the choreography to a Charlie XCX song.
Stop it.
In full scrubs, masks pulled down, holding sterilization pouches like props, it completely bottlenecked the clinic. I had to lean against the doorframe and do the most aggressive, passive-aggressive throat clear of my life.
The secondhand stress I am feeling is immense. I would have lost my mind.
The lack of situational awareness was staggering. But honestly, speaking of a lack of awareness and thriving ecosystems of toxicity, the Snark squad has been wild in our DMs this week.
Yes. Babes, it is time for everyone's favorite segment, Shady, Snarky, or Stupid.
Open the vault. Let's adjudicate some listener messes.
Okay, confession number 1. I saw my terrible boss's husband on a dating app. I swiped right to see if he'd match. He did, and I left him on read. Now I just stare at my boss in meetings.
The sheer audacity of this maneuver.
The panic. Can you imagine sitting in a Tuesday morning marketing meeting, your terrible boss is going over Q3 deliverables, and you're just sipping lukewarm coffee knowing her husband swiped right on you?
It's a very specific power trip.
But the terror. Every time she looks at you, you're thinking, does she know? Did he tell her? What if they have an open marriage? I would have to pack my desk in the middle of the night and flee to the Pacific Northwest.
Let's strip away the anxiety and look at the game theory. The concept here is mutually assured destruction, or MEA.
Oh, we are getting clinical with it.
On a tactical level, the reconnaissance was brilliant. You identify a hostile target's vulnerability on Bumble, verify the data by swiping right, and confirm mutual interest. That is top-tier intelligence gathering.
But she didn't do anything with the intel. She left him on read.
And that is the fatal flaw. The strategy completely disintegrates right there. You armed the missile, and then you just sat on it. Leaving him on read is an amateur move with 0 leverage.
Right, because what's her exit strategy?
She doesn't have one. She created a massive liability. If the husband panics and confesses to his wife to get ahead of the story, claiming the employee is trying to trap him, our listener gets fired for insubordination and harassment.
Oh my gosh, she flew way too close to the sun.
If you're going to engage in high-level workplace espionage, you must have a contingency plan.
Wow.
So what is the verdict? Shady, snarky, or stupid?
It has to be stupid. The risk-to-reward ratio is a disaster. She risked her income for a 3-second ego boost.
I agree. You gain nothing tangible, but risked everything. Stupid.
Okay, confession number 2. My best friend's fiance makes awful signature cocktails. So at their engagement party, I secretly dumped mine in a potted plant. The plant died 3 days later.
A moment of silence for the botanical casualty.
The guilt. Bestie, imagine the guilt. You go to celebrate your best friend's love, you wear a cute dress, and you commit first-degree floricide in her living room.
And every time she visits for the next 5 years, she's going to see that empty terracotta pot and know she's a murderer.
Exactly. But also, how toxic was that drink?
We really need to evaluate the chemistry here. To kill a resilient, established houseplant in 72 hours requires a severely caustic substance.
It was probably bottom shelf tequila and, like, high fructose corn syrup.
With red dye number 40, we are not looking at a beverage. We are looking at a highly effective, broad-spectrum herbicide. It literally stripped the plant's cell walls and shocked the root system.
His fiancé was basically poisoning his own engagement party.
Exactly. This raises a massive public health question. If this concoction can decimate a ficus, what is it actively doing to the delicate mucosal lining of the human gastrointestinal tract?
Oh, she dodged a bullet.
This listener engaged in a self-preservation tactic that likely saved them from acute alcohol poisoning or a peptic ulcer.
The fiancé needs his bar cart privileges permanently revoked. So what's the verdict?
This is textbook snarky. It was a victimless crime, well, besides the plant. You avoided a horrific gastrointestinal event without insulting the host to his face.
And the dead plant is empirical evidence that he shouldn't mix drinks. Snarky it is. Okay,
Yes.
Final confession. I told my boyfriend I was going to sleep, but really I stayed up for 4 hours investigating his ex's new sister-in-law's Instagram on a burner account.
4 consecutive hours.
I am going to violently validate this urge. Every single person listening has been exactly where this girl is.
The algorithmic rabbit hole.
Yes, you click one tagged photo, which leads to a bachelorette trip from 2018, which leads to a comment from an aunt, and suddenly it's 3:45 a.m., your eyes are burning, and you know the dietary restrictions of this stranger's golden retriever.
The dopamine hits are real.
You feel like an FBI profiler. It's a compulsion.
But let's look at the return on investment. The dopamine loop is powerful, but we have to question the efficiency of this data collection.
What do you mean?
4 hours of focused research on a new sister-in-law of an ex-girlfriend. What is the actionable intelligence here? How does this data serve your current life trajectory?
It doesn't. It just satisfies the petty curiosity.
Exactly. Unless the sister-in-law is plotting a corporate takeover of your life, you are burning precious REM sleep, which is vital for emotional regulation, on dead-end data points. It is a catastrophic misuse of resources.
But the heart wants to lurk. Sometimes you just need to know if the ex downgraded. But I will say, looking your partner in the eye, saying goodnight, and then launching a covert surveillance operation on a burner phone, that is inherently shady behavior.
Secretive, obsessive, and a waste of time. I agree with shady.
Well, babes, if you thought those confessions were messy, grab your lime and salt. We have an entire week's worth of Atlanta drama to unpack. Let's get into this recap.
Pour a heavy pour, because the psychological warfare we are about to dissect requires serious lubrication.
Okay, we have to start with Pinky Cole's casting call. She is fully stepping into her mogul era, trying to get this self-funded, scripted series called Edgewood off the ground.
She keeps pitching it as this gritty mix of Insecure and Atlanta.
Yes, and she's funding the pilot out of her own pocket with a $40,000 budget.
Let's pause right there and look at the financial reality. $40,000 to shoot a television pilot in the current economic landscape.
Is that bad?
That budget might cover craft services, a rental van, and one decent ring light. It is microscopic for scripted television.
Well, she was very quick to establish her narrative control. Before anyone could question the budget, she gave this highly rehearsed financial literacy lesson to the cameras about the boundaries between personal bankruptcy and an LLC's liabilities.
She was making sure the blogs heard that loud and clear. She has, 14 slutty vegan locations? She wanted it on the record that her personal restructuring doesn't impact her fast food empire.
And she secured Natry Naughton to play the lead role of Pinky, which is actually brilliant casting.
Natry is undeniable. She survived 3LW, she carried power, she played Lil Kim. She is a seasoned SAG-AFTRA professional.
So Pinky organizes this casting call, and she texts Shemaya and Drew to come down and read for parts. And this is where my blood pressure spiked.
The arrival of Drew Sidora.
Yes. Shemaya shows up. She has the script printed. She's highlighting lines in the hallway. She's treating it like a real opportunity.
Yeah.
And then the doors open, and Drew glides in.
The atmospheric pressure shifted.
It was so condescending. She acts completely above the concept of auditioning. She refuses to read lines, tells Pinky she's just there for support, and starts flexing her IMDb credits.
Okay, I am going to defend Drew's behavior in this specific environment. Let's look at the mechanics of the entertainment industry.
How can you defend her holding up a line of struggling actors in the Atlanta heat just to brag?
Because Drew is a working union actress. She reminded us she worked with John Travolta and Martin Lawrence. In film, there is a rigid, legally binding protocol for casting. A producer does not send a casual text to a union actor saying, "Pop by and read."
But they are castmates. It's reality TV.
Drew explicitly stated on camera that she gave Pinky her management's email. Pinky failed to execute standard procedure. She didn't send the audition slides to the manager. She didn't negotiate a rate. Stepping onto an unpapered, non-union set without approval is a massive liability.
Right, but look at her actions. If it was just a liability issue, she wouldn't have driven an hour across town. She could have texted, "Good luck."
Why do you think she showed up?
She wanted a moment for the cameras. She wanted to hug Natree like, "Hey, fellow celebrity," and then visually diminish Pinky's project. She wanted to make Pinky look small and disorganized.
I think it was a calculated defense mechanism. The blogs are relentlessly discussing Pinky's alleged issues paying employees. If you're Drew, your brand is your currency. You can't attach yourself to a production that doesn't even have standard paperwork finalized.
Well, the dialogue during the exit was masterclass reality TV, a true B-list diva duel.
Pinky realizes Drew won't play ball, looks at her with absolute ice, and says, "You ain't gotta go home, but you gotta get out of here."
And Drew, without missing a microsecond, snaps back, "Who's doing the kicking?"
Iconic.
I leaped off my couch. It was so Betty and perfectly delivered. But even with that exit, Drew's haughty energy was exhausting. Let's travel away from the casting drama, though, because Cynthia Bailey is hosting at Lake Bailey, and the vibe shift is severe.
She summons the tribunal. Angela, Drew, Portia, and Phaedra.
The aesthetics were so different. Cynthia is barefoot on a plush couch, her teeth are practically glowing, and she introduces her new, long-distance boyfriend, Prince Amsterdam.
Who is an exact carbon copy of Puma from Black Ink Crew. I was waiting for him to start talking about tattoo shop drama. The visual resemblance is uncanny.
It was so distracting. But Cynthia's in this elevated era. She sits everyone down and declares she is choosing peace. She acknowledges her past marriages, Peter Thomas, Mike Hill, and says she will never legally bind herself to a man on paper again.
I respect the boundary. If it stops serving her peace, she wants the autonomy to just pack a bag without filing motions in family court.
It gives major sorority big sister energy. She's the alumni dropping in to make sure the house hasn't burned down, and she kicks the fraternity boys out when the real conversations start.
And Prince demonstrated incredibly rare spatial awareness for a Bravo significant other. The second the women transitioned to actual gossip, he evaporated.
Can you imagine if Peter Thomas were there? Peter would have pulled up a chair, poured dark liquor, and actively stirred the pot.
He would have demanded a confessional interview. But with the men removed, the tranquility shattered immediately. Angela decides this is the optimal moment to drop a nuclear rumor directly onto Shamea's marriage.
The transition was so jarring. Angela brings up her discernment. She claims her spiritual intuition tells her Shamea is plotting against K. Michelle, and then she calls Shamea a lapdog with lipstick.
Which is a deeply offensive historical cut, referencing her years as Portia's loyal shadow.
And she didn't stop there. She takes it to the gutter. She claims whenever Shamea's husband Charles is out at clubs, Shamea is out sleeping with professional athletes from the Hawks and the Falcons.
She demanded, on camera, that Shamea free that job up. If we analyze this legally, Angela brought entirely inadmissible hearsay to a global broadcasting network.
It's a massive strategic error.
You are attacking a legal marriage and community standing without empirical evidence. When the producer asked for receipts, she admitted she had none, but believes the person who told her. The liability is staggering.
It is disgusting to play with a family's stability for a storyline. And you know who recognized the toxic airspace instantly? Portia.
The tactical retreat.
The precise second it is. Angela uttered the cheating allegations. Portia stood up, smoothed her outfit, and walked to the bathroom. I give her a standing ovation. She protected her peace. She refused to give the cameras a reaction. That is personal growth.
Let us not confuse highly calculated PR strategy with personal growth, bestie.
Oh, come on. She stayed out of it.
I was laughing out loud at the transparency. Portia is a tenured veteran. She understands the game theory of camera angles. She knows any micro-expression, a smirk or a gasp, will be weaponized by Andy Cohen at the reunion.
You think it was just strategy?
She executed flawless public relations. Look like the mature, bigger person, keep your hands clean, and let Angela do the dirty work of destroying her former best friend. Masterstroke of self-preservation.
Flawless execution either way. But speaking of Portia's PR tour, we have to talk about her lunch date. It felt like a glitch in the Matrix.
The crossover no one asked for. Giselle Bryant materializes from Potomac to have lunch at Midtown Social.
Giselle looked stunning. Her face card never declines. But why was she in Atlanta? Did production deploy her as a specialized cross-franchise bone collector?
Giselle is a professional instigator. It's her core competency. She orders a tequila shot and immediately starts interrogating Portia about her divorce from Simon.
And Portia casually drops that she was trapped in divorce court for 15 consecutive hours.
15 hours.
Bestie, I can't sit in the movie theater for 2 hours without getting restless. The psychological toll of battling over assets and betrayals for a double shift is staggering.
The cortisol levels alone would take weeks to regulate. But Giselle doesn't linger on empathy. She pivots right to Portia's relationship with Shemaya.
And Portia delivers this highly sanitized, media-trained answer about successfully coexisting. She's choosing to withhold the title of best friend without making group events awkward.
Which perfectly aligns with her bathroom retreat, playing the absolute center of the board.
But the aesthetic contrast between that sleek Midtown lunch and the very next scene gave me whiplash. Suddenly, we are out in the rural country at K. Michelle's lake house, and Phaedra pulls up in full denim overalls.
High Camp Green Acres agricultural realness.
The premise was completely chaotic. K. Michelle invites Phaedra to go fishing, but they aren't using worms.
Yep.
K. Michelle pulls out a Ziploc bag of raw hot dogs marinating in red Kool-Aid, garlic powder, and paprika.
We must break down the biological absurdity here. Fish operate in a highly delicate aquatic ecosystem. Their olfactory sensors are tuned to natural proteins. They are not swimming around hoping to ingest a heavily processed meat cylinder dyed with red 40.
The fish took one look and said, "Absolutely not." I was physically gagging. The smell of that Ziploc bag in the Georgia heat must have been a biohazard on par with my fridge incident.
A complete exercise in futility. But as ridiculous as the bait was, it served as the backdrop for the most raw, emotionally devastating conversation of the season.
K. Michelle executes this massive pivot into her trauma from in vitro fertilization. She subjected her body to back-to-back IVF cycles, and the influx of synthetic hormones fundamentally altered her brain chemistry.
She explicitly stated she was crazier than I am now.
She detailed the daily stomach injections, the loss of cognitive clarity, and how she reached a breaking point where her endocrine system just couldn't survive another cycle. She's exploring a donor egg. It was heartbreaking.
It is crucial to understand the biological mechanism. IVF floods the body with exogenous hormones, massively spiking estrogen and progesterone. It violently disrupts neurotransmitters and can mimic severe clinical mood disorders. Her paranoia and erratic behavior are rooted in biochemical disruption.
It was such a grounded reality check. But while K. Michelle is bleeding her trauma out on the dock, we have to observe the absolute masterclass in psychological manipulation happening next to her.
Phaedra is always playing three-dimensional chess.
She performs empathy, but then deploys neuro-linguistic programming to steer the conversation into group politics. She brings up Drew singing the national anthem and guilts K. Michelle into attending.
Leveraging a fragile emotional state to extract compliance. K. Michelle had previously refused to be near Drew, and Phaedra framed it as a moral obligation to the group.
Phaedra is a sorceress. K. Michelle, with her defenses completely lowered, just caves. And that manipulation sets the stage for the climax. But before the memorial, we have to detour to the fever dream of Gerald's surprise party.
Opulence.
Shemaya throws this lavish African attire surprise party for her husband. Live drummers, dancers, stunning aesthetics. On the surface, a beautiful celebration.
But the underlying logistical reality of the guest list was steeped in pure shade. Shemaya spins this narrative in her confessional that she sent invites at the absolute last minute because she was terrified of ruining the surprise.
Which is a verifiable lie. Portia explicitly stated at lunch that her ex-fiancé, Dennis McKinley, received his invitation 7 days prior.
The timeline collapses under scrutiny. You do not secure a controversial ex-fiancé 7 days in advance for a last-minute scramble. That is calculated deployment. Inviting Portia's ex while hiding the event from Portia and Drew is top-tier passive-aggressive warfare.
It shattered her good vibes-only facade, but honestly, the shade was completely overshadowed by the sheer horror of Kelly's behavior. Bestie, Kelly got sloppy, dangerous, unhinged, drunk.
The loss of prefrontal cortex inhibition was staggering. She lost all motor control and social filtering.
I was cringing into my couch cushions. She stands up in front of Gerald, his brother, the elders of the family, and delivers this slurring, leaning, incoherent couple goal speech.
And then it plummets to a darker place. She goes into her producer confessional and graphically announces she wants to sleep with Gerald, Shemaya, and her own husband.
propositioning a four-person orgy on national television.
It shifted from a family birthday to full, eyes-wide-shut energy in seconds. She openly admitted to feeling Shamea's augmented glutes to evaluate their texture. It completely desecrated the respectful tone.
To aggressively sexualize a formal family gathering with in-laws present shows zero situational awareness. I was mortified. And then the women pull Shamea into a corner and start rehashing Angela's cheating rumors.
And Shamea retaliates by calling Angela Bigfoot.
And instantly, Cynthia Bailey, the ambassador of peace, intervenes.
Mm-hmm.
She shuts Shamea down, reprimands her for body shaming, and defends Angela as a member of the Bigfoot community.
The delivery was hilarious, but the logic is completely flawed.
The hypocrisy is blinding. Why is it perfectly acceptable for Angela to launch a tactical strike to destroy Shamea's marriage and livelihood with hearsay, but the second Shamea insults her shoe size, Cynthia blows a whistle?
It highlights a massive logical inconsistency. Accuse a woman of adultery. Standard Tuesday. Call a woman Bigfoot. You violated the Geneva Convention. The moral compass of the group is arbitrary.
It's so frustrating to watch. But this brings us to the main event, the Star-Spangled Mess.
The memorial event for Rich Homie Quan. Drew is booked to perform the national anthem.
And we must objectively acknowledge the talent. Her vocal performance was stunning. The breath control, hitting the high notes with precision. She is a genuinely talented vocalist.
Objectively, the structure was sound. But the psychological circus in the parking lot was not. K. Michelle, manipulated by Phaedra, arrives but refuses to exit her vehicle.
She has a severe paranoid episode. She isolates herself, declaring she won't step outside until she confirms Phaedra is actually showing up.
And Phaedra completely bailed, claimed Mr. President had a football injury, which left K. Michelle stranded on an island.
When K. Michelle finally emerges, she walks up to Drew with the most toxic energy. Drew politely thanks her for coming, and K. Michelle looks her dead in the eyes and states, "I'm actually here for the family, not for you."
The absence of basic social decorum is staggering. The baseline social contract dictates you offer a generic compliment and keep walking. Stating, "I am not here for you," is an unprovoked declaration of war. It guaranteed the post-event dinner would be a bloodbath.
Oh, the wing joint. Drew, Shamea, and K. Michelle go for wings and lemon drops to, quote-unquote, talk things out, which means they secured a location to scream.
The dynamic at that table was a clinical study in toxic communication. On one side, Drew's defense mechanism is intellectual elitism. She adopts this incredibly condescending, faux academic tone.
Yes. When K. Michelle is visibly agitated, Drew literally demands that she construct arguments using complete sentences. She verbally requests punctuations and adjectives.
She weaponizes her college education and references her IMDb page again. She attempts to win the conflict by making K. Michelle feel linguistically and professionally inferior.
It was deeply arrogant and classist. If someone demanded punctuations from me while I was venting, I would physically flip the table. But K. Michelle was just as infuriating. Her defense mechanism is complete passive aggression.
She kept repeating, "You said a lot of things, Drew." But when asked for a specific example, she couldn't provide one. She spoke in vague, threatening riddles.
Because she didn't have a concrete grievance. This feud is a phantom menace fabricated by her paranoia and emotional dysregulation.
Exactly. And the exact moment K. Michelle's brain realizes she has no logical footing, her amygdala completely hijacks her nervous system. The flight response activates.
The Great Escape. Babes, I have watched a decade of reality TV, and I have never seen a woman flee with such frantic urgency. She fakes needing the restroom and literally sprints out the front door.
And abandons her $5,000 Chanel purse on the booth.
She jumps into Shamea's hired car, locks the doors, and sends her terrified assistant back inside to retrieve her luxury goods.
The visual of a high-end Chanel bag sitting unattended next to a basket of lemon pepper wings because the owner couldn't handle a request for an adjective is high art. It is the pinnacle of unhinged reality television.
And the cinematic climax. Shamea abandons Drew, sprints to the parking lot, and jumps in the getaway car. They speed away into the Atlanta night, rolling the windows down, blasting K. Michelle's own country rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner out into the streets.
While Drew is left completely alone at the table, sipping her drink.
I was screaming, "Theatrics!"
Blasting your own vocal track out of a fleeing vehicle requires immense dedication to disrespect. But this complexity perfectly transitions us into our post-recap segment. We need serious analytical time for this. Are we Team Drew?
I'll start because my emotional response is so conflicted. I firmly believe Drew is engineering her own destruction. K. Michelle is erratic, yes, but Drew is a provocateur. Her specific brand of soft-spoken condescension is designed to infuriate. When she says proper channels or I require adjectives, she positions herself as the victim while continuously acting superior to everyone in the room. She invites the hostility.
I am planting my flag firmly on Team Drew here. I think she is misunderstood, and the group punches down on her because her defense mechanisms make her an easy target.
You really think so?
Let's review the empirical evidence. The casting call. She enforced a standard, legally sound boundary. Pinky failed the execution. The dinner. K. Michelle's vendetta is a complete fabrication. Drew sat there, maintained a regulated heart rate, asked logical questions, and K. Michelle sprinted into traffic because she couldn't articulate a single point.
But you can't ignore how exhausting she is. Holding up a line to brag about working with John Travolta is insufferable elitism. Does the audience judge her harshly? Probably. But she hands them the ammunition.
Evaluating her strictly as a reality TV asset, she held her ground against gaslighting without raising her voice, all while eating a chicken wing. I respect the psychological fortitude.
Let me pose the ultimate reality check. Would you actually be friends with her in real life? Imagine getting happy hour drinks after a terrible clinic day, venting about the TikTok dancers, and she demands punctuations and adjectives. It would be deeply exhausting.
Do I want her proofreading my texts? Absolutely not. But clearly our perspectives are split. Let's see if we can find consensus in our segments. It is time for Peach of the Week.
Yes, episode MVP. For me, the peach belongs to Portia. That silent walkout during the crossfire was brilliant game theory. She protected her brand, kept her hands clean, and left the mess for everyone else. Masterclass.
I acknowledge the PR brilliance, but my peach goes to Cynthia Bailey. She provided the stabilizing voice of reason this franchise desperately needs. Between the glowing veneers commanding her boyfriend to leave and defending the Bigfoot community, she executed her mentor role flawlessly.
Cynthia is an icon. Okay, best read.
Undeniably, Angela commanding Shemaya to free that job up with the Atlanta Hawks. Morally bankrupt, legally dangerous, but as an insult. A devastating, heat-seeking deployment of cruelty.
Jaw-dropping. Biggest surprise.
The abandonment of the Chanel purse. Under no circumstances do you separate yourself from a $5,000 leather good unless the building is actively engulfed in flames.
Truly incomprehensible. And most iconic moment is the getaway car blasting the country national anthem. It felt like a hallucination.
Right.
Pivoting to the mess meter. Biggest overreaction.
K. Michelle's flight response from a basic verbal confrontation. Drew was asking for a thesis statement, not an organ donation. Sprinting away and dispatching an assistant is a catastrophic overreaction to the question, what did I do?
Completely agree. Biggest red flag for me is Kelly's drunken monologue. Losing motor skills and propositioning a polyamorous relationship at a family gathering is a neon warning siren. Someone intercepts her cocktails.
The complete absence of prefrontal cortex regulation, most chaotic energy goes to Phaedra and K. Michelle attempting to disrupt an aquatic ecosystem with Kool-Aid marinated processed meats, defied biology, physics, and culinary science.
And the person most likely to ignite next week's drama. My money is heavily on Shemaya. She's playing a dangerous game sitting on the fence. She instigated at the table, then jumped in the getaway car. The middleman always catches stray bullets.
Highly probable. Now, shady, snarky, or stupid. Housewives edition. Moment 1. Pinky trying to cast a union actress via an informal text message.
Textbook stupid business practice. If you want to be a legitimate producer, adhere to union protocols. Texting a working actress like a casual brunch invite is deeply amateur.
I concur. Stupid. Moment 2. Shemaya securing Dennis McKinley's RSVP 7 days in advance, but actively hiding it from Portia under the false pretense of a last-minute scramble.
Pure, concentrated shady. Villainous behavior to deliberately invite the ex-fiancé and play innocent about logistics to avoid inviting the ex-best friend.
Unequivocally shady. Moment 3. Drew Sidora instructing K. Michelle to utilize complete sentences with appropriate punctuations during an altercation.
I know you respect her tactics, but this was snarky perfection. Unbelievably condescending and classist, but watching her enforce middle school grammar while a woman is trying to destroy her was incredible television. Snarky.
I will accept snarky. It was a calculated mechanism to verbally disarm. Which brings us to next week predictions. What does the predictive modeling suggest?
Future feuds. The model says K. Michelle versus Drew will escalate exponentially. You do not force a woman to abandon her Chanel bag and then repair it over coffee. This is heading toward total war.
For new alliances, I project Phaedra swooping in to fully integrate with K. Michelle. Phaedra manipulated her neurochemistry beautifully and recognizes a highly malleable asset. They will forge a bizarre alliance based on paranoia.
Surprise betrayals. I predict Cynthia's finally going to hit her threshold with the younger cast members. Her Zen peace era can only absorb so much foolishness before the OG instincts kick in and she systematically dismantles someone.
Now for the unhinged predictions. Give me your most statistically improbable theory.
Okay, my unhinged theory is that Kelly, experiencing the ultimate Sunday scaries regarding her party behavior, will double down on the delusion. She will invite Gerald and Shamea to a bright brunch and officially propose a sister wives contract, fully leaning into the cringe.
Psychological terrifying. My unhinged prediction is K. Michelle, consumed by paranoia, will rent a studio and lay down a full country music diss track, dismantling Drew's IMDb page, featuring a banjo solo mocking her choreography in Step Up.
I would stream that immediately. Babes, the psychology of this episode was unmatched. But now we must hear from the Snark Squad. Get into the comments. Are you Team Drew? Did she deploy brilliant defense mechanisms, or was her elitism insufferable?
We also require your verdicts on the confessions. What was the most catastrophic decision? The mutually assured destruction of matching with the boss's husband, chemical warfare against the houseplant, or burning REM sleep on a burner account?
Also, settle a deeply important studio dispute. Frozen margarita or classic on the rocks? George Clooney might ignore our data, but we value your input. And who's carrying the psychological weight of this season on their back?
Thank you all so much for spiraling with us. Do not forget to like, comment, subscribe, and forward this to the messiest person in your contact list. They require the external validation.
They absolutely do. But before we sign off, we want to leave you with one final, lingering thought to process.
Precisely. K. Michelle spent this entire episode aggressively bragging about her gift of discernment, her spiritual ability to read true intentions and unseen threats. But if her gift of discernment is operating at such an elite level, why didn't it warn her not to leave a $5,000 Chanel bag entirely unguarded next to a plate of buffalo wings?
It really makes you evaluate the data. Stay shady, babes. Stay hydrated. And we'll see you on the Snark side.